Well, hello everyone. I'm Jim Frater, your host. Welcome to Tips and Tricks Live, our monthly webinar series where we share useful tips and tricks with our Proficient users, all of you. Today we'll be discussing ways to streamline your Proficient upgrade, your next upgrade. So first, we always start with our housekeeping rules. The webinar lasts between 40 and 45 minutes, followed by a Q&A session. Please use chat for your questions. Your phone should be muted, but if it does go unmute, please try to mute the phone to minimize the sound on the line. We are recording this session as we always do, and you'll receive a playback link in the email here shortly, probably tomorrow. And please, you can share that with your coworkers, revisit the topic later on, and so forth. Our speaker for today is a new speaker for us. His name is Ricky Villaroman. He's an application engineer here at Infinity QS. He provides client consultant services and implementation services for our products. He is also a Proficient fundamentals trainer, and he's worked for a number of years in the software services industry before joining us. He has a bachelor's degree in engineering from Virginia Tech, Hokie. With that, let me turn it over to Ricky, and he'll talk about streamlining your next upgrade. Ricky.
All right. Thanks, Jim. Hi, everyone. My name is Ricky Villaroman. Today, I'll be introducing ways to streamline your next Proficient upgrade. So today, we're going to discuss, these are going to be our main topics here, why you should upgrade, some of the benefits. We'll talk about the software tools that are available. And then we'll also talk about the best ways to prepare for your upgrade. And then we're going to go through the actual upgrade process and understanding how to go about that. All right, so let's go ahead and start with why you should upgrade. Okay, so why you should upgrade. So we'll start off with some of the benefits here. So first one, added functionality. Okay, so we have added new features, new functions that you may not currently have on your version. We're going to talk about some of those and how you could take advantage of them. Next are some enhancements. So we've been making changes to existing functionality, existing functions, usually based off of the feedback we receive from clients to help streamline the user interface and just make the whole project creation process more efficient. And then lastly, we're going to talk about some bug fixes here. Another one of the big benefits is that some of the earlier versions experienced some bugs, so we have gone ahead and fixed those. Talk about some of the general issues that we've fixed and some of the behavior that we've encountered. All right, so we'll start off with some of the more recently added functionalities. So first, we'll start off with dynamic schedule. Now, some of you on your older versions might already have this, but the big thing about the more recent builds is that now it's actually bundled in with Proficient SPC. Meaning that before it was a separate service that you had to get, that was a separate license. So here it's bundled in with SPC, so you can use it as long as you have a Proficient license. And for those of you who are not familiar with Dynamic Scheduler, it's basically a tool that allows you to do timed quality checks. It's often referred to as timed reminder checks. It automatically reminds you, for example, if you do a 30-minute check, every 30 minutes, it will prompt you, and there will even be a countdown to let your operators know that you're getting close to that time. And as you can see here on the screenshot, I can provide you with a whole list of them as well. Lets you see all of your potential checks and how much time you have to do them. Okay. So the next functionality we're going to talk about is string compare. So this allows you to compare descriptors with a test code string that you input. So this is especially useful if you have, let's say, barcodes. I've had clients that will have a barcode scanner test that they want to run. And if you have this functionality here, if you upgrade to your newer version, what you can do is you can scan a barcode and then compare it with a specific descriptor that you have to make sure that it's the correct code. Now, this was added in 4.517 here. So some of you might have it, but some of you on the older versions may not. So that might be one of the things you want to look at here. Another more recent added functionality is part revision. So this is used to create unique identifiers for limit modifications. So I've had a lot of clients ask me, we have a part and a test that constantly have their specification limits changing. Maybe not every day, obviously, but maybe every month or every quarter they have a change. So how do we go about handling that? So we've added part revisions to handle that. This allows us to assign a part revision to a certain spec or reasonable limit, whatever limit you want, and it will allow you to input a date range for that part revision so that you can say for this specific part revision, for this specific date range, this is your specs, and then for this date range, this is your specs, so on and so forth. So you can have a lot of part revisions, and it will allow you to track all of your changes, and you can go back and see all your data that way as well. Okay, so now we'll go ahead and talk about some of the notable enhancements, right? So we talked about some of the added functionality, so let's talk about some of the things we've changed with our existing functionality. All right, so in the newer versions, we've simplified data entry configuration. So what does that mean? So the main thing here is that we've removed the optional items tab. So if you're in an older version, older than 4.5.28 here, you'll notice that you have 4 tabs when you're creating data entry configurations. Your optional items used to contain your descriptors. It also used to contain your special data acquisition driver, subgroup collection times, and external document links. So that's what used to be in your optional items tab. Now, what we've done is we've tried to streamline all of this, make it a little bit more user-friendly. So what we've done is we've moved the descriptors onto the required items tabs along with the tests, rather than having a whole separate tab for it. So we've combined it all under the required items tab. Now, the other thing to take note of is there were some options on the bottom there that I mentioned earlier, and you don't see it right there, and that's because we've gone ahead and moved that to the advanced options tab. So we've moved the special data acquisition drivers, subgroup collection times, and external document links all under that advanced options tab. Okay. Another big change is UTC time. So we've added an option to use UTC timestamps when upgrading to ProFicient version 4.5.17 or higher. Now, this is a big thing for us, for some of our clients, because if they have, I've had a lot of clients that, they'll house a centralized database that's in a different time zone, and on some of those older versions, you got a little confused with the timestamp. You converting to UTC time, since it's a universal time, eliminates a lot of that confusion, and it adjusts based off the time zone you're in, so you're not confused on when certain data was collected. All right, and then another big enhancement here is compatibility with data management system and data collection service. Okay, so that's also DMS DCS. So if you hear me refer to that, that is data management system and data collection service. So a lot of you guys on some of the older versions might have something called RTI, or real-time importer. And that was our old automated data collection. Now what we've done is we've replaced that with DMS DCS on ProFicient versions 5.029 and higher. And one of the benefits is that DMS DCS is just a little bit more robust, has a lot more features, can do a lot more things, a little bit more flexible. So if you did have RTI, maybe you had some certain limits to that before, check out DMS DCS, because that might now have some of the some functionality that might be able to assist you there. All right, so moving on to other enhancements. So we're going to talk about the categorized tab and the Pareto charts and the box and whisker charts. So previously in some of the older versions, you only had 2 of these. But what's happened is that on the more updated versions 4.4, 10 and up, we've actually uploaded it, or updated this to have up to 6 characterized by option. So this allows you to have a lot more details on your Pareto and box and whiskers. You can have a lot more functionality, and a lot of our clients like that, so that they can get more information out of those charts. Another thing here is improved view data reporting options. So this is one of the bigger things for sure that our clients have requested on. A lot of clients that are still on the older versions request a lot of these functionalities, and I have to tell them you have to upgrade, because a lot of these functions that you want are on this newer version. So let's talk about some of them. So you can rearrange columns. So that's a big thing, right? If you're an older version and you have a view data chart, depending on the version you have, you might not be able to move the columns around. And that's a big thing, because if you want to print reports directly from Proficient and you want to manipulate how it looks, you're kind of limited on how you can do that unless you upgrade to one of the more recent versions. All right, hide empty fields. Again, that's just another benefit. If you're recording data, you have a lot of tests, but and especially automated, and you have a certain column that maybe has not received a lot of data recently, it might just be there because that's what you used to collect, but no longer. If you do hide empty fields, since that column no longer houses any data, it will automatically hide it from your view data so that you can see it, or that you no longer see it, especially when you're printing charts and stuff again. And then lastly here, display specification limits. Again, a really big feature, because previously what clients had to do is they'd have to export that view data onto like a Excel spreadsheet or something, and then add a column or two for the spec limits. And this just makes it all nice and easy. It puts it all on the view data for you so you could print it directly. And again, this change was on 5.1.14. So again, if you have an older version of this, then this is definitely something you might want to look into. And then lastly, we'll talk for benefits, we're going to talk about bug fixes. Okay, so we'll just talk general. So we'll talk about some of the performance improvements. So we've made a lot of performance improvements that made the software function more quickly and more efficiently. We've also done functionality issue fixes. So some of those features above had some potential issues. So we tweaked them around just to make sure that they can work as best as possible. And then lastly here, unwanted reported behavior. Sometimes the software would be a little finicky at some point, so we've addressed those and made sure that it's as smooth as possible, address some of those issues. And honestly, there's a lot of these. You pull all this information from a change history documents, and there's about 300 pages of those, so we could sit here all day and talk about it. But what I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna let you know that we have that change history document available to you guys so that you can look at it, and it's also indexed. So if you look at it online, you can actually just Control F and find specific words in there. If you're looking for specific changes, you can look for it in that document, and you can see, okay, this version it was fixed in here, so I should go to this version, so on and so forth. So you can look at that there, and here's a little screenshot of where it is. So if you go to our website, infinityqs.com, right there, what you're going to want to do is go to Support, Downloads, and Proficient Advanced. And here you can see here is the latest version right there. And then we also have documents on the bottom, including the change history documents and the archive of all of them. So again, if you want to see more details, go ahead and refer to that document. All right. So the next thing we're going to talk about is software tools. Okay, so first thing about software tools. Let's define what software tools are, right? So they're just Infinity QS services that are used to expand Proficient capabilities. So these are services that we provide. They're added on top of the Proficient SPC software so that you can go ahead and you can automate data, do a couple other things, but this is on top of that. So this is not included in just the Proficient. This is separate, but it works in tangent with Proficient. So let's take a look at some of the common examples. So I already mentioned one of these earlier, data management system, data collection service. So with this, what we can do is it's our new automated data collection service. As I mentioned before, we previously had RTI. This replaces that. This supersedes that. It's a little bit easier to use and has a lot more functionality built into it. Again, that's automated data collection. Next thing is remote alarm service, otherwise known as RAMS. So this is used to monitor automated data. So data coming in from, let's take a look at DMS DCS, right? So that's sending data. What remote alarm service does is it looks at that data and it creates alarms. Because as you guys know, with projects, when you have a DEC and you collect data through a project manually, you get alarms automatically through that project. But when you're getting data coming in automatically from DMS DCS, you don't have a project open specifically to look at that. So this remote alarm service allows you to look at your automated data coming in, and then we'll generate an alarm on that so that you're notified that way. And so how do we notify people? So a lot of people would like to use mail service. So they'll use mail service, and it can work in tangent with a remote alarm service and send an email if it does see an alarm to certain recipients. So you can send it to a certain supervisor or a manager or whatever the case is so that they can address any alarms that they see. And then lastly here, again, these are not our only services, but these are our more common ones. And the last one I'm going to talk about here is enterprise integration service. And in short, what this is, it's a routing service that can move data from one location to another. We see a lot of clients who maybe have everything in like different servers and all that. This can help you move stuff from server to server, from computer to computer, or if you have a cloud-based database or something like that, you can move it as well. So that's some of the functionality there. And then one other note that we have to take note of is, and I kind of mentioned this before, but all of these software tools are installed separately from Proficient SPCMI, okay? So this is completely installed separately from Proficient SPC. So again, just keep that in the back of your head as we keep talking about software tools here. So since we know that it is installed separately, it is also licensed separately, meaning that you have to get a separate license. You have to talk to your account manager and say, hey, I want DMS DCS. Hey, I want EIS. These are all separate, so you have to explicitly say that so that you can get a separate license for it. And another big thing about software tools that we have to mention here is service accounts. So these are, again, services that run in the background. And so what that means is that they need to run on a service account. So what you have to do is you have to make sure that the service account that the services are running on have the proper permissions to not just that specific workstation or server, that it has access to all the other workstations and servers that also house InfiniQS elements. For example, if you have a separate services server, but then you have another server for your database, you need to make sure that it also has access to that database server, or else it's not going to be able to properly communicate. All right. So at this point, some of you guys might have these tools, or some of you are interested in these tools. So some of you might be asking, how does this tie in with the whole upgrade process, right? So how does this tie in? So what we're going to talk about is compatibility here, because all of this data, all these software tools, as I said, are separate from Proficient. So they're installed separately, so they're also going to have a separate upgrade process. So what I have here is a little snippet of what service releases work with what Proficient release, okay? So I'm not going to go through every single service release and the compatible Proficient release, but the important thing to note here is that you need to make sure that if you're installing, for example, the latest version of Proficient, that you also install the compatible service release. And also you can find this document on the InfiniQS website, similar to where you go to find the change history document. So you can find that around there as well. All right, so now we'll talk about how best to prepare for an upgrade. So this is probably the most important part. Preparation for this is going to be crucial, because if you don't spend enough time and effort into preparing, you're going to find that you're going to run into a lot of issues down the line when you're trying to upgrade. So this is especially important. Okay, so before you start upgrading, you're going to want to ask yourself some of these questions. All right, so the first question you're going to want to ask yourself is, what resources will we need? Okay, so you're going to have to ask yourself, who is it that I need? What do I need? What actual items do I need? Who do I need to talk to in the InfiniQS side? All that. So we're going to go through that just to put everything together. Now, the next thing is, how do I get my hands on the upgraded Proficient version? So all of you guys probably already have Proficient installed, because you're looking at the upgrade. So how do I get my hands on the newest version, right? What do I need to do to get that? And then how can we limit the amount of issues we encountered? So you might have had to upgrade other systems in the past, not just InfiniQS related, but and with those other systems, maybe you encountered some issues, maybe some database issues, what have you. So what can you do to kind of limit some of those errors? We'll talk about the process for that, some of the tips that we have so that you don't have to worry too much about the errors you're going to receive. And then lastly, who and what processes will this upgrade affect? So we'll take a look at who you guys need to inform and what you can do during this time. Okay, so we're going to start off with the resources. So the first resource we're going to talk about is going to be the database admin. And I have to stress this a lot because this is a very important person to this whole upgrading process. They will, first of all, they'll be able to help troubleshoot any issues that you may encounter in the backend database. A lot of times when you're upgrading, you might see missing keys or that type of error, and your database admin will be able to troubleshoot that for you and help you guys along the way there. So that is very crucial. But another reason too is that during the whole upgrade process, at some point you're going to have to update the database because the newer database has newer tables and fields that are not in the old database. And to add that, you're going to need a database administrator, right? So if you don't have a database admin with you who can't give you those privileges, then you're going to be stuck in the water. So make sure you have a database admin with you throughout this process. Okay, the next thing here is ProFicient admin. Okay, so ProFicient admin, they're also a very important part of this whole process. They will need to verify the functionality of the software before and after, right? So this ProFicient admin is the person that knows how the project was set before, how the data was entered, the whole data structure. So they need to understand, they need to be there so that at the end of this whole upgrade process, they can go through and test all the data entry, test all of the reports, make sure that it's still working as intended. All right. Next thing is the service accounts. So I already briefly mentioned service accounts, but you're going to want to make sure, again, this is handy because once you go through the upgrade process, those services are going to have to restart, right? Because you're going to shut them down, they're going to restart. Make sure that you have them handy just in case you need to input your username and password for the service accounts again. So just make sure to have that ready just in case. Another big thing here is backup files, right? So first thing for backup files is the database. So you guys already probably do some sort of backup, maybe that's weekly or daily, whatever the case is. But you want to take a backup of it just in case anything goes wrong. We can go ahead and restore the data structure and all of the data. And then the next thing here is local files. So by local files, I just mean projects, any images, any maybe gauge configurations, all that type of information. You're going to want to just back all that information up just in case, again, you need to restore everything. And over here, we're going to talk about time. So you just got to make sure you allot the correct amount of time. We'll talk about a tip later so that you can know how much time, because that's a question I get a lot, is how much time do I need for this upgrade? And honestly, that depends greatly based off of how much data you have, how big is your data structure, how much services are on like certain computer, so on and so forth. There's a lot of factors into that. So what we're going to do is we're going to talk about one of the tips that will allow you to kind of time that and make sure you have enough time. And lastly, the last resource we're going to need is a test environment. So this is very crucial. You're going to want to test everything first in your test environment to make sure that your actual production upgrade goes smoothly. All right. So the next question we're going to talk about is how do I get my hands on the upgraded ProFicient version? So first we're going to talk about the licensing. So first you're going to have to submit the upgrade request form to receive your EULA. So you're going to submit this to your account manager, and then they'll step through the process with you. And then after that, you're just going to have to go ahead and download the latest installer by going to the InfiniQS website. So once you've submitted that, and in that EULA is what's contained is that it's going to give you the new registration number and access code, as these have slightly changed between the different versions. So you got to make sure you have that. After that, you go ahead and go to the website and go ahead and install it. So how do you go there? So here's a quick video on how to step through that process. All right. So this is the InfiniQS website. You just go to support at the top there, then go to documentation. Then after you go to documentation, what you're going to want to do is you're going to go to downloads. Then after you go to downloads, what you're going to want to hit is ProFicient Advanced. Then once you do that, you'll see there is the actual executable. And once you click that version right there, it starts downloading, and then under documents, you'll also see the change history document. But after this, if you still want to install services, or if you have to, go to Proficient Services there under downloads as well. And again, you see similar screen. Just go ahead and click on the version that you're going to install, the latest version. Okay, so that's the process. Fairly straightforward. Once you download it, we're going to step through how to actually run through it and run the installer and all that. But that's just how you actually download the executable to run it. Okay. All right. So the next big thing we're going to talk about is limiting the number of issues. Okay. So this is a very, very crucial part to the whole preparation process. All right. So first thing you have to do is make sure you try to upgrade your test environment first. I have a lot of clients that have a test environment. They say, okay, we try to do that upgrade. It didn't work, so we're going to go ahead and just try production. I don't understand that reasoning. They want to get it done quickly, and I get that, but you have to make sure that you go through all the proper channels and do as much as you can so that you don't experience any issues, or at least minimize. So upgrade your test environment first. So what does that entail? So first of all, first thing you're going to want to do is update your test environment. What do I mean by update? So by update, I mean update it with the more current data structure, some current data that you guys are currently running. And a lot of people are like, oh, I don't know how to do that. This stuff is so old. How do I update it? Well, there's these backup files that we talked about earlier. If you have those proper backup files and they're recent, what you can do is you can use those backup files to update your test environment so that it might not be the exact day, but if it's close enough, you should see a similar amount of data, similar data structure. And this should get you close enough to your production system so that when you run an upgrade that you could actually kind of simulate what it would be like in a production environment. So that's, again, a very important tip, is to make sure to use the backup files to update your test environment. All right. And the other thing too is time, how long the test upgrade takes. So again, this is going to limit the number of issues, because a lot of time what happens is during an upgrade, they haven't allotted enough time, and then they get stuck and they have to revert back and all that. So what you could do here in this situation is test how long your test upgrade will take. For example, if my test upgrade takes, let's say, 2 hours, you could add on another hour on that just in case you experience any other issues. But then you should have a general rough estimate of how long your production system will take based off of that test upgrade. So again, another really crucial reason to upgrade your test environment first. And then lastly, going through the test upgrade on your test environment, you should see, especially if it's up to date, you should see a lot of errors that would, well, not you should see a lot of errors. If you do see any errors, you will see errors similar to how it would be on the production system. So that's really one of the benefits here. If you diagnose it on your test system first and you encounter it in your production system, it should take you a lot less time to fix it, because you've already dealt with it in the past with your test upgrade. In a lot of cases, for example, if the error is missing keys, you could actually prevent that from even popping up during your production upgrade by fixing those missing keys before you do the upgrade, so on and so forth. So you can prevent a lot of these issues, or at least know how to handle them beforehand. So that's, again, one of the big benefits of testing your test environment first. All right, so lastly, we'll talk about who and what processes will this upgrade affect. All right, so this upgrade will require the Proficient system to shut down, like the whole system. That's, all the Proficient systems, all of your data entry projects, all your reporting systems, all of those are going to need to be shut down for us to actually do this update successfully. So what does that mean? So that means that your operators and supervisors, they won't be able to enter data or view any of the data. So you're going to have to schedule some downtime. Okay, so you have two options here. So the first one is schedule an upgrade during a downtime that you guys already have, for example, on the weekend if you don't work on weekends, or sometimes later in the evening if you don't have a later shift. Now, Again, another tip, just throwing this in there, and I mentioned this before, but schedule your downtime based off of how long your test upgrade takes. I can't emphasize this enough because that's one of the biggest questions we get. How long will it take? You schedule this based off of how long your test upgrade took, because you can do your test upgrade at any point in time and it's not going to be a big deal. And then lastly here, the other option that you have is have an alternative data entry method during your upgrade. So a lot of times, there is no downtime. We have clients that run 24/7. So what they have to do is, because they can't schedule downtime, is they'll have to have an alternative data entry method and then later enter that data. So they'll either go back to pen and paper, or they'll go through an Excel spreadsheet and just have operators type in the data for the time being until the upgrade is done. So you can pick and choose. It just depends on how crucial it is. But preferably you schedule some downtime there. All right. So again, these are some of the people you're going to have to talk to. Want to make sure that they're all caught up and no one's caught off guard. All right. So some additional things you want to keep in mind, okay? So you may need additional assistance if you're going to do one of the following things here. So if you're updating from a Proficient version older than 4, so sometimes there was one time I was with a client and they were updating from a Proficient 3 version, so they had to first upgrade to Proficient 4, then go to 5, so on and so forth. So there's a lot of, if you're on a really, really old version, there's some additional steps to that. So what you're going to want to do is you're going to need some additional assistance. Also, if you're moving your database and server during an upgrade, you're also going to need some additional assistance as well. So who can you contact? Well, you can go ahead and contact our tech support team, and they can provide you guidance and documentation on this. And I want to emphasize guidance and documentation because our tech support team, they're not going to do the whole upgrade for you. They're not going to move your database and server for you, but they are there to help you, guide you if you have any questions, troubleshooting issues, and they'll also send you step-by-step documentations to show you guys what to do. But again, I want to emphasize that they're not there to do the upgrade for you. Okay? You still need to have the resources on your side to help you out. And then the last section we're going to talk about here is the upgrade process, understanding. Okay, so understanding the upgrade process. The first thing is to prepare for the upgrade. So we already talked about that in the last section. Make sure to gather all the right resources, test it in your test environment, make sure to schedule enough downtime so that no one's caught off guard. All right, the next thing you have to do is shut down all the Proficient application services. So I mentioned before with the downtime, you have to make sure everything's shut down. If anything's being held up and we can't close it, what happens is we can't do the upgrade. So make sure everything is closed. Next thing is going to be to run the Proficient installer. So the Proficient installer is what's going to actually do the update for the application. Then after that, we're going to update the database. As I mentioned before, we're going to have to update the database because the new Proficient application has some new functionality. So by default, it has to have new tables, new fields, all that. So you have to make sure that you keep that in mind as well. And then we'll talk about updating the services if you have services. And again, quick tip here, you can find the step-by-step upgrade instructions on the InfiniQS website. So if you do want to know the step-by-step, you can always refer to that. Again, give our tech support team a call if you need to know exactly how to get to those documents. All right, so first off, we're going to start with something a little simple here. So we're going to start off with the shutdown of the Proficient applications and services, okay? So go ahead and play this video real quick. All right, so here I'm just on my desktop here. What I'm going to do first is we're going to go to services on my computer right here. So go to services, and then what I'm going to do is under the names there, I'm going to scroll down until I found my InfiniQS services, and you'll see I have my message service highlighted. Here's a tip for you. If you stop the message service, it will actually also stop the DMS and DCS service. So rather than going in by hand, you see how I didn't stop DMS and DCS as well. it just automatically stops for you. So you can stop message service to stop those as well. It makes it a little bit quicker for you. And then lastly here, I'm just going to Task Manager, and if there is any Infinity QS applications running, for example, I have this one running, you can go ahead and manually end that, so that, again, make sure that nothing is running in the background. So here I'm just checking, double checking, making sure that nothing is running in the background, no Infinity QS stuff, because if you do, again, the upgrade process will be hindered. All right, so once you've made sure all your Proficient applications and services have been stopped for the time being, what you're going to want to go and do is go through the actual installer process, the upgrade process. Okay? So again, make sure you go ahead and do this with a database administrator account, because if you don't, you're going to run into some issues here. So what we're going to do is, this is the older version right here, and I'm going to show you that by going to Help, About Application. This is how you can check your version. So this current version that we're upgrading from is a 4.03 version, okay? So what we're going to do is I'm going to close this out real quick. All right. Then I'm going to find the executable. So Infinity QS Advanced 542009. I'm going to go ahead and run that. And then as I run, it's going to ask what language. Obviously, I'm going to choose English. And I'm going to let it load here for a bit. So it's just going to ask if you want to confirm. Go ahead and say next. Going to tell you about some of the information here. Go ahead and click next. And so at this point, it's going to go through the loading process. And I actually did something in this video. I didn't close out everything because I wanted to show you a specific prompt here. So I'll let it go through this. But if you didn't close out of all of your applications, for example, or if something is running in the background that you didn't see, you're actually going to get a little pop-up here, this one right here, that says a file is being used by a certain Infinity QS application. Do I want to close it? I'll say automatically close and attempt to restart, and I hit OK. And so now it's closed that application, and now it's going through the update process. So now if I just let this video play, it's only a few minutes long, again, because I don't have a lot of data. Yours could take a lot longer. I was on a client side, and that took about like 30 minutes because they had thousands and thousands, tens of thousands of data. So, you know, obviously it's going to take longer. For me, I had a fairly empty database, so this is only about a couple minutes long. But we're going to go ahead and fast forward this a bit towards the end. Okay. So as soon as the upgrade process is done, what's going to happen is it's going to ask you if you want to restart your computer. Typically, you would say yes. In this case, I just said no, so I could show you the next process, the next step here. So go ahead and hit finish on that. And then what you're going to want to do is, now I'm going to open up my SPC software so I can go ahead and license it. So you'll see that first of all, the icon is different, right? So it's going to ask me my username and my company name. Go ahead and hit OK. And now I'm going to go ahead, and I have an evaluation key. So I'm going to just go ahead and install my key, so on and so forth. So this is the whole upgrade process. Now you can see that the application has been updated, so on and so forth. So we're good there. So this is updating the Proficient application. All right, so the next big thing here is updating the database. And again, just want to emphasize that while updating the database, this is especially crucial for updating the database, that you run it under a database administrator account. Okay, so again, quick video here. So now what I've done here is I've opened up Database Manager, and the specific database that was the old one that I'm updating to the new one is that Infinity QS Proficient examples. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to hit OK on that. And now once I select it, you're going to see that it says the database is an old, excuse me, second here. So, so right here, I just wanted to show this prompt right here. So the database is an old Infinity QS database structure. So the conversion to the new structure can be performed automatically from Database Manager, which is why we opened up Database Manager. And once it converts, you cannot go back to an older version. So that's the prompt here. Again, I want to show you all these prompts and details because you will see these prompts, and I don't want you guys to be alarmed just because it's a giant red screen. I've had clients, because it's a giant red screen, they don't want to click OK, they get scared, but I want to read this through with you guys to make sure that you guys understand what's going on. Right, so after you hit OK on this prompt, you're going to get one that says the conversion is about to take place, back up your data. So it's basically just another reassurance, making sure that you've taken the proper precautions. Now, if we followed all our steps that we talked about before, we already did the backup, and we've already talked to our database administrator, so we should be good to go here. All right. So once we proceed with the database conversion, we're going to go ahead and we're going to hit OK here. And once we do that, the next prompt is going to be regarding UTC time. Okay, so UTC time right here, it's just saying that now the newer version here utilizes UTC. Historical timestamps must be updated to display properly. So we're going to go ahead and say yes here. And we're going to go ahead and proceed and hit OK. Now, once we hit OK here, it's just going to go ahead and go through basically every single table, as you can see, and just update them all. So we're just going to skip through that. But basically, as soon as the upgrade is done, it's going to ask you to log in. So go ahead and log in with your username and password here, and then it should pop up the table. Now, what you can do is now that you've done everything, you're going to go ahead and check to make sure you're on the right version by going to Help, About Application. And now you'll see my Proficient Advanced version is 5.004 when previously it was a 4 version. So now we've upgraded, and now we know we've upgraded successfully. Okay, so the next thing here is the service updates. Okay, so now we've gone through upgrading actual Proficient Advanced. Then we've gone through updating the database. So some of you, that might be it. You might not have any services, but here is a video to go through how to actually update the services as well. All right, so here this is an older version here, so I'm just going to go to Help About, just again to show you guys that I'm on the 3.0 version, an older build here. Now I'll go ahead and hit Close and hit Close. So at this point, my Proficient Advanced database is all updated. So this is the last step of it. You have to do this after the fact. So as you see, I stopped my message service. And then I also had my Gauge agent service running, so I'll stop that as well. And then once we've done that and made sure that all the other applications are closed, now we can go ahead and run the service installer. So showing you guys run it as an administrator right here. And so as it runs through the process, you're going to be prompted for very similar things as upgrading before, but there's this screen that is very important. So this screen right here, this little window that pops up, it's basically asking you what services do you want to install. So you see there's the data collection service, which is the DMS DCS. There's the mail service, enterprise services, and event services, so on and so forth. So these are kind of the services we talked about before. And you can choose to install which ones you want. For example, if you bought only data collection service, you could check just the InfiniQS data collection service box and uncheck the rest, because if you didn't buy the licenses for them, all they would do is take up space. But if you think that you might want it in the future, maybe what you're going to want to do is go ahead and check them so that when you do decide to go and purchase them, you can go ahead and use them as well. So that's just one thing to keep in mind here. This is the screen where you're going to want to select what services you're going to use. Okay. So at this point, you're going to go ahead and click Next after you've selected what you want to use. And then it's going to say, it's just going to go through the whole upgrade process, kind of similar to the Proficient Advanced here. So I'm not going to spend too much time on it. So it's installing. And then at this point, what I'm going to go ahead and do is, as you'll see here, so I'm opening up my services so I can check if it's running. I'm just going to refresh because as soon as the update is done, it's actually going to try to restart the services for you. So you're not going to have to restart each individual service. Now, what you're going to want to do is go ahead and find your data management system application. And then here you'll see that it's updated. So if I go to help about, and then I have my updated version right there, 5.004. So that's how you can verify, and that's the whole upgrade process. Now, all of the installers, they function in a similar way, so don't be too concerned about like the screens that you see and everything. The most important thing here is the preparation process. Okay. All right. So now let's go through the summary here. All right. So let's go through everything we've learned today. So let's start off with the benefits, right? There's many benefits to updating. We talked about the different things you can do, the different functionalities now that you can do, the bug fixes, some of those stuffs, a lot of those are benefits. And where do you go to find all of this information? You can check out our fixes and improvements on our website through the change history document. All right. And then software tools, you just got to make sure that with our software tools and our Proficient versions that they are compatible, that you're not installing an older software tools version with a newer Proficient version, or else they're not going to be able to properly communicate. So make sure you're installing the compatible versions. All right, and then make the proper preparation. Again, this is probably the most important part of this whole session right here. So make a test environment using the backups from production to update your test environment so that you can simulate something that is close to production. All right, allot downtime based off of that test environment upgrade, making sure that you let everyone know that there's enough time and that you're not rushed on it. And then familiarize yourself with the upgrade process steps. So you can find the step-by-step upgrade instructions on our website once again, or call our tech support team and they'll help guide you. And then make sure to perform your upgrade under an administrator account, right? Your database admin, make sure they're there and you're running it under a database administrator account, or else you're going to run into some issues. All right? So that's pretty much all I had today for you guys. So I'll hand it back to Jim real quick, and I'll let him take over from here. Thanks, everyone.
Well, thanks, Ricky. Lots of great information there. Let's just kind of go to the next slide and just kind of talk about what's going next month. As part of this month, we talked about upgrading your system, and one of those things was if you wanted to add, DMS DCS or automated data collection to your system. So we're going to talk about that next month. So how do you add automated data collection using DMS DCS for that? Miguel from our applications team will be actually doing that presentation, and it's March, I think 12th this month, next month. So that it's a little bit of a problem there. I think there's a scheduling problem with these guys, so with Miguel. So the 12th is the day, not the 5th. So I apologize for that. Let's see. I don't see too many questions. Let me ask one quick question. Of course, when you upgrade it, it's new software. So the question is, does upgrading come at a cost, Ricky?
Yeah, so that's actually a really good question there. So if you have AMA or the annual maintenance agreement, there's actually no cost to upgrading. That's one of the great things about having AMA. You have access to the most recent, most updated version of Proficient. So as long as you have that AMA, you have access to the website. You can go ahead and download it, and also you have access to a tech support team that can help you out, help guide you around all these things. So as long as you have AMA, you're covered.
Yeah, if you need to get that, just contact your account manager, and that person will help you, get that squared away for you. Mm-hmm. Okay, so if you're upgrading your DMS DCS service, will it get rid of any of your existing configurations? Any effect it'll have on your system there?
Yeah, so that's another good question. So as you guys know, the DMS DCS, it houses a lot of the configurations on a separate file. That's actually a concern I get a lot is if I upgrade, do I lose those files? And it's actually not the case. When you upgrade, by default, it looks in the same location where those other configurations were, so it's going to still use those configurations, so you're not going to lose it. However, with that being said, I would suggest to do a backup of it, just to be sure, just in case anything happens. And to do that, all you have to do is on the top left of your screen, you just have to go to File, Export when you're on your DMS DCS screen, and you can choose the location of where you export the configurations to.
Very good. Looks like Patrick has a question. How do you enforce the downtime / blackout? Is there a way to prevent users from accessing Proficient or adding data during the upgrade process?
So what you could do is you could force people to log out on Database Manager. So you could force people to do it that way. But in terms of forcing people not being able to use it, usually it's just installed on their desktop or something, or there's some sort of shortcut. What I would do is I would coordinate with the IT team and just go ahead and remove, that desktop application that they see the shortcut, just so that they don't have access to it. That's probably just the best way to go about it. You could lock, certain accounts and all that, but the best thing I think would just be to coordinate with your IT team and just remove the shortcut so they don't even see it and doesn't even bother them.
Okay, very good. So one question about upgrades and or new versions, how often they occur. I'll just say that we try to update at least once a year, Proficient or more sometimes. So I would just you can talk to your tech support person, or you can talk to your account manager and let them get that information for you, see what's planned. This year so far, we usually have some plan in place, of course, and so they can help you get that information. Let's see. I think that's it. Any more questions out there? More questions? Let's see if I can see any more. That's it. So, well, thanks everyone. Thanks, Ricky. Great presentation on upgrading. Lots of good information there to kind of guide you through this. Again, we're recording this session. We're going to send you a link tomorrow, most likely, or maybe Monday. So we'll look for that. Put that in your resources. So if you need to take and refer back to it, you can. With that, thanks everybody. Thanks, Ricky, and have a good rest of your day.
Thanks, everyone. Thanks, Jim.